Hey ladies, welcome back to the show. I'm your host. I'm Trisha Stefankowitz. For anybody new out there, I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. On our episode today, I wanted to talk about this idea of a mindset shift when it comes to discomfort and this idea of embracing discomfort. For so many of us, myself included, it's like we have this idea of we know what to do, we know what we want to do, but we don't end up doing it, or maybe we start doing it, but we don't maintain that. And a lot of times we talk about motivation. Oh, I can't maintain that motivation. And so I really wanted to dive into discomfort because I think this is really the key, and motivation is not. It's really just this idea of being uncomfortable. And I think there's a lot of us that are out there that we don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to feel comfortable and secure all the time. So I wanted to talk about this idea of embracing discomfort in an effort to have those true changes that you really desire to come true in your life. Before we start the episode, I want to remind you I have a new freebie. It's 5 ways to preserve your health as you age. And it's not on my website, but you can grab it in the show notes of this podcast. So go grab it. I think it's some really good content. Okay, now on for the episode. As humans, and as women in particular, we want to feel comfortable. I know that I certainly do. And I think a lot of us tend to avoid discomfort at all cost. We may even run away from it. We may be hiding from it because it feels so vulnerable and so unsafe sometimes. We want to be and live in this place where we feel safe and we feel like we have a lot of control. And I think a lot of times what keeps us from feeling uncomfortable or doing something that's uncomfortable is that may make us feel like we don't have that lack of control. It may make us feel distressed. It may make us feel really uncertain. And so for a lot of us, I know I do, I carry this shield or this metaphorical shield that helps protect me from doing the things that I don't want to do or that make me feel unsafe. Now, when we're talking about feeling unsafe, we're not talking about, in the sense of like this unsafe walking home from work, kind of unsafe in the middle of the night. Just this idea of like being vulnerable, I think really is what we're talking about. In my own life, I've been really trying to work through some of this discomfort, but it's really hard. And so as I do this, I wanted to just kind of explore this idea with you too, because perhaps you are also dealing with not wanting to feel uncomfortable. And this idea that maybe if you're able to embrace discomfort, you can truly get to be the person and to have and to achieve the goals that you're really trying to achieve. So what happens with discomfort and why do we even do that? Well, I think for a lot of us, it's this idea again that we want to feel safe, that we don't want to feel vulnerable. And some research supports that it's even a survival technique that's been passed down from our ancestors. And what's so interesting is that the threshold for discomfort is different for everyone. So you may see people who, I know you probably know people who just like say they're going to do something and they do it. And so those people may have a higher threshold for discomfort than maybe other people do. And so understanding that, and that's totally okay. Most people, I think a lot of people really struggle with that idea of feeling discomfort. That's why I'm doing this episode, because I think there's more people that struggle with that than that are probably big risk takers when it comes to comfort. But discomfort is like anything. I think the more you practice it, the more you become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so what happens when we are in this place of wanting to feel comfortable all the time? What is the problem? Well, I think the problem with comfort is that there is a lack of growth and expansion on our part, right? So if you're always doing the same thing, then it's hard to really feel comfortable being outside your comfort zone, and it's hard to take new risk and to do something different. And the more and more comfortable you want to be, the less you like just the more uncomfortable you are, the less you're going to want to feel the discomfort, because it doesn't feel good. It feels scary, it feels stressful, it feels anxious, it feels vulnerable. And if you're in a place that you're not really doing a lot of growth and expansion and being uncomfortable, then that's going to feel really scary to you. One of the other problems with being comfortable all the time is that you're not living up to your full potential or of who you desire to be, really. It's really hard to live up to your potential if you're not able to be uncomfortable, because that idea of being comfortable all the time stifles your personal growth. And so for what happens for a lot of us, again, I'm including myself in this, because I think it's normal human behavior, is that we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And the more we do that, the more comfortable we feel, and the less we feel like taking a risk and doing something different in our life. And so it's very hard to grow and to continue to grow when you're doing the same thing and not being uncomfortable. And it may even leave you feeling unfulfilled because you're not feeling like you're living up to your full potential and doing the things that you feel like that you need to be doing in your life to get and to achieve the things that you want to achieve. You know, there's a quote, I always like to talk about quotes, and there's so many quotes about comfortableness and being uncomfortable. And one of the ones that I wanted to quote is from Jonathan Majors, and basically it's, growth is uncomfortable. You have to embrace the discomfort if you want to expand. And I think that's kind of the crux of all of this, is that in order to be something different or to achieve a different result, we need to do something different, and that may include some discomfort along the way. So what are some of the things that women, or maybe you, feel uncomfortable about? I mean, I think sometimes going to the gym for the first time, especially if you haven't been to this gym before, or if you haven't been to the gym in a really long time, the idea of walking into that gym and doing something different can be really uncomfortable. If you are starting a new exercise program, no matter where it is, I think that's very uncomfortable for us and for women in general. When it comes to dealing with our emotions, especially when it's related to food, that's a really uncomfortable feeling. It's much easier to eat or to watch Netflix or to numb ourselves instead of actually naming whatever it is you're feeling and experiencing it. I think that there's a lot of different things. You may be somebody who is uncomfortable saying no, and perhaps always saying yes leads you to do things that don't feel like you're making yourself a priority. It can be also that you feel uncomfortable making yourself a priority because for so long you are putting everyone else's needs above your own. But, you know, one of the things about being comfortable is that, again, it doesn't allow us to fail. And one of the main things that is necessary for growth is for us to fail, or for us to feel like we didn't do it right, or that it wasn't 100% perfect. And that's how we allow ourselves to become vulnerable. And all of this is an important part of life, and it's necessary. So failure is a really big one. I think that we don't want to fail, which is maybe one of the reasons why we keep ourselves comfortable. And I've done episodes on why failed diets are important, because I think for a lot of people, that's a big thing that a lot of women can relate to, is this idea of being on a diet and not being able to maintain it. You know, how I feel like diets don't work, and that it's more becoming in tune with who you are and getting comfortable with feelings and dealing with them and being vulnerable. And I think that's kind of the way through, as opposed to restricting what you eat, because there's all these underlying feelings that I feel like a lot of times we don't deal with because we don't want to be uncomfortable. And so then we end up in the same position over and over again. And so for dieting, I know that, again, is an example that all of us as women have felt before. But and failing in that provides growth, right? So anytime you've done that dieting, you can look back at it and be like, okay, I learned this about something, I learned about this. And so it's to kind of see things like that as not that you didn't do enough, but you can look at what needed to be different, and perhaps that you weren't vulnerable enough, or you weren't uncomfortable enough, or it's not about that you failed. It's about that you learned something from it. And I think this is the whole point of all of this, is that in discomfort and the idea of being uncomfortable, there is going to be failure, but that's part of life, and that's part of what you'll see works for you, and that's part of identifying what it is you want. There's so much growth that can happen there, and yet it's such a vulnerable place that I think most of us don't want to end up in, because it's hard to navigate. So why do you even want to do anything that's going to make you feel comfortable? Like, what will you gain from it? Well, I think the biggest thing with feeling discomfort or being uncomfortable is that you have this chance to live fully and to live to your greatest potential, and to stop hiding from who you are. I think that's a really big one that we do. At least I know I do. So if I'm experiencing it, perhaps you are too, of this idea of like playing small and you're not really living, and you're kind of hiding because it's just because it can be scary. Nobody wants to be scared. And so it's much easier to, again, watch Netflix. That's one of the things that I do. Or perhaps you're somebody who scrolls social media because you don't want to kind of deal with what's in front of you. Again, there's lots of different ways that we do it, but it's just kind of knowing that there can be something better out there for you, and that you might and you will be able to achieve what it is you really want and what it is you really desire if you're willing to take that chance and to be more uncomfortable some of the time than you are right now. So now that we've talked about this idea of being uncomfortable, why we tend to want to be comfortable, let's talk about how you can start to embrace being uncomfortable. First, I'm going to tell you two things. I think the first thing is to get used to the idea that you are not meant to be comfortable all of the time. That's a really hard one, right? So many of us are like, yeah, I want to be comfortable. Yeah, I want to be comfortable. But we're not really supposed to be comfortable, because we're supposed to be, we are creatures that there are so many different parts to life, and it's not always just this comfortable part, but we are dynamic. So all of life is about learning and being comfortable and being uncomfortable. We're never supposed to be like pigeonholed into just being comfortable. And so I think it's just kind of getting through that idea that it's totally okay that you're going to fail if you do something new for the first time, and you're going to feel uncomfortable, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's not going to be perfect, and you are going to resist, and you are going to feel like you're standing out and you feel different. All of those things are true, but all of those things might not be experienced when you are in a place that makes you feel uncomfortable, but they may, and that's okay, because that's part of the growth process. And so for you, it's trying to explore what it is that makes you feel uncomfortable in comparison to what you're doing today. So like, what is it for you? What is it that you really want to be doing that you're not doing? And what is the fear there? What is the discomfort that you don't want to experience? Start to just kind of dig into that a little bit. It for you, is it that you don't know where to start, or you don't want to be uncomfortable with dealing with your feelings when it comes to food? Do you, are you afraid of failing? And so that's why you don't want to be uncomfortable. And so it's just this idea of like normalizing it, because I think normalizing it allows you to feel a little bit more freedom, and it allows you to not feel so scared when you're taking this step forward and being uncomfortable. I've been thinking about this a lot, because what I've noticed in my own life is that I think that I do the same thing where I'm dealing with stuff where I'm trying to be in a place where I'm uncomfortable and I don't like it, and I will try to avoid it at all costs. But what I realize is that first of all, it's just detrimental to me, but I can't seem to get out of it, which is why I'm working with my therapist. But one of the other things about this is that I don't want to. One of the things that I've come to realize is that my son is watching me. So I can say to him, don't be scared, take a risk, do something, be uncomfortable. But then if I'm not actually doing it, then what am I teaching him, right? So for us, we have a game that we just started that we have like a jar. And when we do something that's uncomfortable, either of us, we put that intention in the jar. And then when he gets like 3 of those, then he gets to like get like a prize from like the dollar machine at this place that we go to eat once a week. So maybe there's a way that you can make it a game in your own life to challenge yourself, right? So the next thing that I would say, the second part of this idea of how to embrace discomfort, and by the way, if you hear my son in the background, I apologize. I'm trying to record while he's sleeping, and I think he woke up. All right, so the second way would be to just take action, no matter how small. So the more you live in this idea of feeling uncomfortable, the less you will resist it. So first, it's kind of getting used to the idea that it's totally normal to be uncomfortable and that we really aren't meant to be comfortable all of the time. Then it comes to what is it that you need to do to take action in your own life. And one of the ways that you're going to figure this out is you're really going to try to figure out what your life looks like today. Like say like in your brain, you're thinking like if you wrote it down on a piece of paper, where you are today, and you wrote that down on the left side. And then on the right side of your paper, you would write down where you want to be. And then in the middle is your pain or your where you feel some discomfort, perhaps, right? So what is the pain or discomfort that's in that middle that's keeping you from getting to where you are today to where you want to be? And so the pain part here is the key, because the only way forward is to take action. And that doesn't mean that it has to be perfect. It just means that you're going to take action no matter how small, no matter how messy, no matter how imperfect, no matter how uncomfortable you feel. That's part of the way to get to the journey of what you're trying to achieve. And what you'll see is that the more action you take and the more uncomfortable you allow yourself to feel, the more desensitized and more willing you will feel to sit and feel the feelings of being uncomfortable. And so some of the ways that you're going to do this is to really be okay that it doesn't matter how small it is, that growth is growth. And that, we talk about on this podcast a lot that it doesn't matter what you do, it's just that you're moving forward, even if it's just 1%, because that step of taking action just lets you feel a little bit of discomfort at a time. And then the more you do it and the more you keep moving forward, the more comfortable you will feel in doing the action. And you could be somebody who just takes action really quickly, and you maybe have a really high threshold for feeling uncomfortable. But for those of you who don't, and by the way, I fall in this category, the idea of just taking one step at a time is really going to probably be okay to get you there, no matter how small it is, because that's going to give you the courage to keep moving forward. And I think that when you take these like little baby steps, it may even provide you with like a little bit more confidence, and then you do it the next day, and then you have a little bit more confidence. And so for you, again, it's just that you are having some form of growth, and it's not how much growth you do, but it's that you're doing the action that's going to be the confidence builder of you achieving it. And for you, that might look like something like maybe you take a different route
or a route that you've always wanted to go on, but you didn't know if you could, or maybe you thought it would be too hard when you're walking or you're exercising. Maybe you have wanted to take an exercise class that you see other people taking, but you feel a little bit like not ready, and you may never be ready. So maybe that's what you do today, is just take that class and see how it goes, and know that it's probably going to feel uncomfortable, but at the end of it, you may feel really exhilarated and surprised by all that you were able to accomplish. Again, make it a game, because I think that's how we kind of take some of the sting away of being so uncomfortable. Maybe you're somebody who needs to get in touch with your emotional eating, or naming some of the feelings that you don't want to deal with. Whatever it is, just kind of start thinking of some things that can get you to that goal. And remembering that the doing, the action part, is the confidence builder. And so motivation becomes something that is, I feel like we all think that we need to have. But the doing part, the actual taking action part, is the discipline builder. It's not motivation. And the way that you continue to achieve your goals is not by relying on motivation. It's by continuing to make these steps forward and having that discipline and building on that discipline. That's going to last longer than any motivation ever will. And in fact, some studies suggest that the more you take action, no matter how small, that's really the key to building discipline and also increasing motivation too. So taking action is really what's going to kind of get you from where you are today to where you want to be. And so what is keeping you stuck in your life today? What is keeping you from having what you want? And starting to think about what those pain points are that are preventing you from doing it. Is because you don't want to feel uncomfortable? Is it because you feel scared? Is it because you are afraid that someone's gonna make fun of you? What is it? What is it that's keeping you stuck today? And I really want to just kind of, remind you that the only way forward here is to take messy, imperfect, uncomfortable action. And so what is it that you will do today that will make you feel uncomfortable, but that is something that will make you and bring you closer to the goal that you want to achieve? I want you to think about what that is, and really just kind of start thinking about what it is that you can take, and the idea, and normalizing the idea of being uncomfortable. So remember, any step forward is progress, and it's always this idea of choosing progress over perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't want it to be perfect. This idea of embracing discomfort embraces all of you, that you're not always a perfect person. You're not always a consistent person. You are somebody who is normal, and there are dual parts to you. And so part of exploring and living to your highest potential is exploring all of those parts, not just the parts that you deem good. So thank you so much for listening. Please just do one thing today that makes you feel uncomfortable, not unsafe, but uncomfortable. And certainly if you want to share that with me, I would love to hear that. You can email me at info@triciard.com. If you need ideas of what can make you feel uncomfortable, certainly you can grab my freebie in the show notes, 5 ways to preserve your health today, to kind of help you as you age. Maybe there's something in there that will make you feel uncomfortable. But I wish you a very good day and a very uncomfortable day. And, any action is action, no matter how small. So I encourage you to take one step today that will lead you in the direction to the health, wellness, and self-care goals that you so desire. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys back here next week.